right, I got 6:27, so we'll wait till 6:30 when they throw the switch on the online group. But if you came in and you didn't bring your book, Lara worked very hard today to catch up on everything, and we just printed the pages that we're going to go over. So that's what she's got out there. If you don't have a copy of that, you can grab one, get a hold of it. This is going to be very fast, so you're going to have to listen quickly to keep up with this. I hope you've gained some from this over the 3 weeks we've gone. I've had different ones that have called to tell me that they had found the clickbait on the web. And don't forget, you can go there on our sermon resource and just click on clickbait, which is the name of this series this spring. And this series will be there. All 3 sessions will be there by tomorrow afternoon or sometime. Go for that. All right. I'm going to call it a go. We'll trust that those people are catching up. I want to thank you for helping me with this and participating in this, but I'm going to tell you this information needs to be shared. This information that I've given to you over this period of time has stated from the beginning that one of the problems we have in prevention in our children's lives is that parents have not caught up. We've guided you through that fact of waking up to the fact that what's in the kids' world is certainly far different than anything that was in yours. One of the things that I haven't addressed in our discussion is the fact that you never saw on television what they're watching today. The average 9-year-old has seen more bizarre sex acts on TV than his grandfather has fantasized in a lifetime. It's a bizarre situation that little brain is trying to figure out. Now, you go from that to all the other things that are being sold on there, as well as the cultures and all the other things that are happening. If you don't talk about it, you're leaving children and grandchildren extremely vulnerable to what the world wants to pour into their minds. And it is very hard for them to sort it out. So they seek out answers to these questions. And guess where they seek them out? With other 9-year-olds, all right? So then we sit down and we get wonderful things talked about at school. And then one of them says, I have a 12-year-old brother. And that 12-year-old brother feels like a hero when he comes in and gives them all this information that you failed to give them. Now, tonight we're going to begin on checkup. Now, this is on page 66 in your book. But this checkup has to do with how do I prevent drugs in my family? How do I prevent my child falling victim to that? Now, you may find it interesting that the way I begin is with discipline. The key to this is that you can get discipline as disciple and understand it better than maybe discipline from the way you received it. I think that the way we received it was more in correction or control, and we're going to talk about that. But children need to be discipled. Now, why is that? Well, they need it for protection. They need it to be able to know that they can protect themselves. There's an element in which a parent not telling a child not to run in the street, the child will run in the street. So you need discipline so that they will learn, don't do things like put your hand on a hot fire. They also need it to get along with others. If they don't learn that kind of discipline, they will steal from others, they will take from others, they'll make a lot of noise, they'll embarrass themselves with others. You create their social boundaries. Discipline is very important. But the third one is to understand limits, and that limits are not to keep you from something. Limits are to keep something from you. They're to keep you from being exposed or hurt or harmed as long as you stay within these boundaries. Now, the purpose of discipline then is to teach acceptable behavior and behavior that causes you to be liked and behavior that causes you to be safe. If you don't do that early in the life of a child, That child by age 5 has determined who's in charge. They will have determined whether they are the ones in charge or you are the one in charge. If they've learned to contest you at a certain level and argue with you and, banter back and forth, and they can beat you down and cause you to give up, then they know who's in charge. And that creates nothing but fear in their lives. Discipline is not punishment. Punishment or physical aggression to try to stop the behavior of a child is a control factor that doesn't work all the way up through the prison system. We try to put people in prison and control them thinking it will change them. And it does change them. They come out much worse than when they went in. But the truth is very few are changed by that prison experience. A control factor causes them also to believe when I get big enough, then I can hit somebody and make them do what I want them to do. And they learn that physical action is where I can find the greatest power. So I need to be strong. I need to be physical. Now, if you are parenting, it is absolutely, I can't tell you how important it is to use something besides your hands. If you are going to follow through with a type of corporal punishment because the child would have been hurt and you say, well, I wanted them to have some physical feeling because of that. Do not ever use your hands for anything but love and attention and that kind of correction. That's what they're made for. Now, let's quickly talk about the danger of anonymity. How many of you have made the statement, if my parents find out, I'm going to be killed? And now, how are your parents going to find out? Because of Mrs. Pushpatat. She told everybody, she looked out her window and she called everybody when you got onto the block. They knew what kind of car your parents had. They knew what kind of dog you had in your backyard and if it got out. And they certainly knew when you were on the wrong street that you weren't supposed to be on. And that safety net, how many of you lived in a world like that growing up, right? And so that safety net became the place where you were pretty well controlled. I mean, you could leave your parents' driveway and go 4 blocks in any direction, and you'd get ratted out if you threw a rock. I mean, it didn't matter. Well, this anonymity is something that causes kids to do things that we never would have done. You know what a TG&Y store is? Okay. I had a TG&Y store down by our house, and we were in the store one day, and I popped off or said something to the manager. My mother knew about it before I got home. And so I learned you don't do that because our culture, and as I guess Hillary Clinton used to say, the tribe was raising the child. Now, in our world today, you can't trust the tribe. You know the stories where the man's tried to correct. We had a blow up in our neighborhood where some boys were doing something totally inappropriate, and he posted back and he said, if you want to correct my kid, you come talk to me, don't you talk to my kid. Well, I wanted to post down there, okay, we'll just let your kid run in front of the car. We won't bother to tell the kid to stop. We won't bother to let the kid go. Let me tell you something. Children who die in Weatherford are everybody's responsibility. Children who die from drugs, children who die from any violence, children who die are everybody's responsibility. You can't just say that was a bad parent. Children in our culture that are dying because of this stuff. Somebody's not doing something. I am absolutely inflamed about what's going on the world stage, that one man gets to do what he's doing right now and everybody's afraid to touch him. And people are being killed, children are being slaughtered, ladies are being raped. I'm just stepping back going, are we completely insane that we can't figure this out? Well, I'm telling you, the dangers that have come on our kids are extremely important today. But the biggest thing I can tell you is that an informed parent is a child's greatest asset in surviving the dangers. If you want to make sure your kid never does drugs, then you find out about drugs. If your child knows that you know what the drugs smell like, look like, if your child knows what all's going on, then you get informed. Now, I'm not saying go out and smoke dope and start taking pills. That's not what I'm talking about here, you know. Don't go get drunk tonight until the preacher said do it. No, don't do that. I'm saying that an informed, involved parent is one that really gets involved in the life of that child. All right? If you want to do prevention, put rules in your family, guidelines in your family. Now, this is governing the family. You have got to get in the way with your kids. What are you listening to? Oh, nothing. Bring me the CD. What are you watching? Oh, nothing. What channel are you on? Where'd you go? Oh, nowhere. You better tell me or I'm going to get the GPS tracker out and track that brand new phone that I gave you for Christmas that has nothing on it except a GPS. What's in their room? Well, you don't have the right to go into their room. They need their privacy, and they need their privacy like everybody else. Not in my house, they don't. Not if they're going to be safe. I don't want that stuff hiding around and lurking. I don't leave snakes in my house. I don't need snakes hiding around in the drawers. I don't need that kind of stuff in there. If they're going to live in my house, they're going to understand there's certain things we don't do. Now, do you have to make that a hard nose, you better not do it? No. Honey, here's the way we live. This is the culture of our house. We do not consume chemicals in here. We do not consume chemicals really anywhere. Your dad might have a beer or something, or I might have a glass of wine, but the truth is we don't do drugs. That's what we don't do. We're good Baptists. We don't smoke and we don't chew and we don't go with girls that do. We don't do that stuff. But the other thing is we don't yell. Honey, we don't yell in our house. Because when you start yelling, you get really stupid and you say things you don't mean and then everything goes crazy. So honey, that's one of the rules, that's one of the guidelines of our house. This is the way we live in our house. If you want to know how we live in our house, we are cordial to each other. We respect each other. That's what we do. Now, when you're raising that child with that, guess who has to model it? So immediately you're turned to, this is going to change my life. It sure will. And you can send me a note and say thank you later. You've got to have rules. Now, please hear me. One of the problems we have with teenagers today is they do not respect authority. And they do not respect authority because there's been no authority in their life that they understood from the age they were very small to they were very big. They may have known somebody that they feared, but not really respected. I've talked with so many different people who feared their father, and they loved their dad, but they feared him. They didn't respect him. They feared him. And that's, as we found out last week, two different things. Now, I want you to understand as well that these guidelines, when you set them out, teach them to follow the rules. And if you want, now I'm talking from here up, okay? I'm talking down here about these babies, these grandkids coming up. If you want them to respect the rules when they are teenagers and they are older than that, show them the importance of respecting those rules now. Now, I'm going to say one more thing very quickly, and that's on music. I don't think I even put it on here. Here it is. Music is addicting. There are many, many people who've become addicted to music. And the reason some of that is addictive, and I could do this right now. I could stand somebody up here with their arms out just like this and hold my arms out and say, pull my arms out, and they would not be able to pull my arms down. You can put a headset on me and crank up the volume, and I don't care how many times you tell me I can't hold that arm down, you can pull it down with 2 fingers. All focus is gone when you start pumping that music into the ears. And often it doesn't matter what kind. I guess if you have a microphone, it doesn't matter which way you cough. The truth is that if you don't know the lyrics of those songs, I couldn't understand a word those songs are, you better get on the web. And you get on the web and you read the words, you would be shocked beyond belief to see what the real words were at the Super Bowl. You would be shocked beyond, many of those words were actually they're not even allowed to be said on TV. And yet this is what, and you're going, well, that's one of my daughter's favorite, that's one of my favorite singers. Well, you better, I suggest you pay attention because it is pumping right into the right side of their brain. All right, pay attention. Right side of the brain, emotion, colors, sounds, pictures, all of that. Right side of the brain. No words. No words over here. No logic over here. No math over here. Left side of the brain. Logic, time, reason, order, judgment. That's why, as I told you last week, when you saturate the left side of the brain so quickly with alcohol, you immediately lose logic, time, reason, order, judgment, and your emotions begin to flow and you feel good and you say things you wish you hadn't said. What happens with music is the same thing. It stores in the right side of the brain. That means that the songs you sang as a child, you can't forget today as much as you'd like to. They are stuck in your head. If you're not careful, that's exactly what's going to go into the brains of your child, and it's going to guide their values, and it's going to guide the way that they make decisions for the rest of their lives. That stores there. All right. Freedom responsibility standard. On page 72, you see a chart there. Now, this is a very simple standard and should be shown to every child between the age of 2 and 20. And that is, here's the way we're going to work this. When you were born, you had zero responsibility and zero freedom. I put you in a cage. I didn't let you out. You had no responsibility, though. You had total freedom within the cage, but I had you in the cage. As you grew older, we brought you out, and we put up little safety gates, and we plugged things, and we said you couldn't go into certain areas. As you showed responsibility, we granted you freedom. Here's the greatest violation in society that has caused the greatest damage among all of our cultures, and that is we have given young people too much freedom before they showed responsibility. And they don't know how to handle what they are receiving. They are immature in their thinking. They are emotionally driven. They are pumped by the music. They are fed by the media. And therefore, they take on whatever the culture has to offer. You can say, I don't understand why kids do that. And I would say back to you, I can't understand how they keep from it. That if you've got that pumped in all the time and you're in that culture, that you aren't somehow going to buy in with that. What you have is, as a child shows that responsibility, you grant them freedom. Anywhere in life that works. Anywhere in life. If we do not follow the law, they will eventually put us in a cage. And the way you get into the cage is you consistently violate your freedom. You consistently violate it. Therefore, if you do not do this in the proper way, you are leading that child to self-destruct. You are allowed, look, don't put a 16-year-old in a Camaro with a big engine with the maturity of a 12-year-old and think you're going to help them. Oh, they'll love me more. They'll behave better. I buried a young lady. Her parents told her, if you'll just get away from this guy that had been selling her drugs and getting her involved. He was a car dealer. And he said, I'll tell you what, if you'll stay away from him just for 6 months, I'm going to buy you whatever car you want. You can have any car within reason down there. I'll get you any car. She stayed away from him for 6 months. They thought they'd won the battle. The day they bought her the car, she drove and picked him up. He drove up, crossing a train track. Train hits the car, kills her, breaks his arm. You need to understand you will never be everywhere you need to be to control and protect your child. And if you don't build this protection in with some understanding of the value of roles and respect and all of those things, that's who's left the child vulnerable. Those same children sometimes grow up in those same neighborhoods with parents that hold very good values and have very strong opinions. And there are children who grow up in the same neighborhood and don't get into that as well. You say, well, what are we doing to do about all these parents that are, don't even go there with me. You worry about yours, all right? You take care of your house, I'll take care of my house, and we'll see what we can do with the rest. But it wouldn't hurt to pass on the word today that the ones that really stand accountable for the behavior of children are parents. Is that right, Span? If you got a kid that's acting up and whatever, they do something, you're a police officer, right? All right. So who are you going to go get? Mom and Dad. And I got a few addresses for you that I can give you. Need to take care of. Freedom, responsibility. All right, the next thing is this. Control doesn't change people. I think I've said this so much. If you all don't know this, it'll probably be on my tombstone. You all put that there, and life is relationships. Those are the two things you'll put there. But look, you cannot, the difference is not whether you can make a child behave. Anybody can hold onto a 9-year-old's ear and make him pick up the dog food, okay? Anybody can do that that's an adult. Anybody can throw enough fits and hold on tight enough and put up enough bars that you can control somebody. That does not change them. The important thing that you want to know is, what's your child's attitude toward drugs? What's your child's attitude toward premarital sex? What's your child's attitude toward music that gets into the head? Do you give them good Christian music? Do you give them good country music? I guess there's no such thing. Do you give them something to replace? Do you guide them in what's good? Do you share with them while the TV shows are on? I'm not saying talk about everything in a negative way. I'm not talking about being negative. I'm talking about saying, what do you think about that? As a grandparent, you can always walk in and say, what do y'all know about that marijuana? What is that stuff? What do y'all know about that stuff? And they'll go, oh, we got to catch Grandpa up. He's going to be an embarrassment to the family. You'll find out everything they know about marijuana and every other drug in the family. They'll tell you about the meth. They'll tell you about everything because they're trying to help you. You can talk about stuff that the parents can't tell, right? But the truth is, somebody's got to talk. And when you've got parents that are trying to make kids behave, I had a statement made to me that just like blew my mind, made me so angry. I don't get mad, but I mean, I was upset. And that was, I heard a lady say, the only way you're gonna control those kids is to just keep hitting their bottom until it's blue, and if that doesn't do it, make them bleed. And they'll finally don't do that. Oh, that'll help them make good decisions when they're 20. What does that teach them about anything? All it teaches them, when you're big enough, you can beat up people. All right, here we go. Face up. What are you going to do? How can you tell if your child's using drugs? Parenting is one of the most difficult things when it comes to get into dealing with drug detection. Now, you've got a listing of all these different ones, and you realize that if you don't impose good curfews and you don't know where your children are. Another big one, when I went over to Plano, they'd had a bunch of kids killed by heroin overdose, and I was on the radio with Don Day. What is that his name? Don Day on WBAP radio, something like that. And I was on the radio with him because 2A. Remember 2A, the football player that died from heroin abuse, heroin overdose? And they had me on, and he said, we got about 30 seconds for you to tell everybody how to keep their kids from getting into this. I said, oh, no problem. I got this. I'm like, okay. And so I jump into the boat with it, right? And I just start off, and I said, let me tell you now, I don't have time to get into all this. The biggest thing I can tell you is be awake when your kids come home. Give them a hug, give them a kiss, and look them straight in the eye and see what they've been doing. And I'll show you what that means in a minute. But the truth is, these kids were being brought home, either thrown out of an emergency center where they'd overdosed, or brought home, put in bed, and dying in their own vomit. Because the heroin would go in, cause the lung to relax, the fluids keep pumping, they go back into the lungs, and they would drown. And they would drown in their own beds. And this was going on. And all these parents who are going, I just trust my kid. Let me tell you, don't ever trust a teenager. Okay? I mean, you say, oh, you're so cruel. Yeah, okay. Don't ever trust a teenager. Let them think you do. No, I mean, you can let them know, look, I am trusting you. I'm giving you the car, but I'm going to check, right? Now, by that, it doesn't mean I don't trust him, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to check. And where you throw them out there and you don't check, well, what do they know? You don't know anything. If the glove doesn't fit, you must have quit. That's what they know. I mean, they know that really well. They've got all that down. If you can't prove it, you don't have a corpus delicti, right? I don't have any good ties. This is This is the whole thing here. Do you go to school? Let me ask you this. How many adult men do you think go to the high schools where their kids attend and walk the halls during classes to see what those kids face? It's nearly non-existent. It's just non-existent. How many of them kind of cruise the streets or go by the parties? I love to do the one on my daughter. Hi, I'm Van Hauser. My daughter Shelley came to the party here, and she forgot her socks. I would, Dad. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And if you don't get that, then you need to pay attention, because somebody's got to be watching this a little bit. You can look at some of this other stuff. This fact that many young people will say that they were using drugs for up to 2 years. Do I have that up here? Were using drugs up to 2 years before their parents ever caught it. And I've heard, is there anybody here who will admit, I had a child that was doing drugs and I had no clue that they were in trouble? Would anybody admit that? Yeah, okay, yeah, right. And then after they told you, did you go, well, yeah, but I just thought it was what he said it was. Oh, yeah, I saw that. Oh, yeah, I saw that. I'm not saying you can be 100% certain, but I'm saying you can be a whole lot better if you'll know what to look for in a lot of these behaviors. Now, a lot of these signs and symptoms are extremely normal across the board. They're across the board. It's not cocaine, marijuana, heroin, LSD, PCP, it's none of that. These behavioral characteristics associated with substance abuse are the key ones, and you're going to find these what happened here? Let me go back one. Yeah, they're really small right now. I don't see it. Okay. These have nothing to do with anything regarding race, sex, creed. These are commonplace, and you're going to find these. All right, I'm going to do it this way. You can guess a couple things are going to happen. Grades are going to start going down. You've heard that all your life. Friends are going to change. You've heard that all your life. Their dress is going to change. You've heard that. If you've been watching it all, you've heard that all your life. Their respect is going to change. You've heard that all your life. They're going to start wearing sunglasses at inappropriate times. We're going to talk about that in a minute. They'll wear long sleeve jackets if they're getting into meth stuff. You're going to start seeing some markings on them where they begin to identify with a certain group. They drop out of athletics. You're getting behavioral changes. You're getting behavioral changes. Now, if you're doing a depressant, you take that depressant, whether it's an opiate, whether it's alcohol or anything else, slurred speech. Why? Because you just hit the brain. They cannot stop the slurred speech. All right? You're also going to recognize they're having trouble walking. You're also going to recognize if you have a teenager that they come in with Listerine on their breath from smoking or drinking, right? Because kids just drink a whole lot of Listerine just to clean their breath up before they come home. If you want to see what they're, and get this, I can say this to most of you, I think, sitting right here. Just think what you did. Where you hit it, how you hit it, what you did with it, how you managed to get by, and you have to realize that kid's going to be doing the same thing. You look for things that they roll up. Anything that's rolled up in the car, anything that's stuffed behind, look for it in different places. But one of the biggest things you're going to find is that as that increases, you're going to see more and more signs. We'll talk about those. Let me go through this so you can get an idea. If I am on a methamphetamine, you're going to notice that I cannot stay still. If you're doing speed and you're doing speed rate, you cannot stay still. And you can say, stop jumping your feet, and they will. But something's got to move. Their body is wired. Their system is wired. They cannot stay still. And they're going to look at you, and you're going to notice their eyes are darting. Their eyes will not look in one place. Their eyes will be moving side to side, up and down, back and forth. They're going to be very nervous. You're going to find if they've got more on the methamphetamine, on the stimulants, you're going to see not only this excessive stuff, but they're going to be very argumentative. They're going to talk fast. They're not going to be willing to listen. All of this is going on under meth. Nose will run. Some of those signs are there. Now, if you see someone who's on a lot of meth, and if you get there, God bless you if you get to this point where you begin to see the needle marks. But the needle marks are not only here, they're under the fingernails. They're in the feet. They're wherever they can insert this needle. They know this is dead. This is when they're almost gone. I mean, they're just shooting up and they don't care. But there's an awful lot of this going on. When they're on cocaine, cocaine and meth have one thing that you must understand is I think the main reason they do it. You're Superman. I mean, you're Superman. There's nobody bigger than you. There's nobody better than you. There's nothing better. You are it. You've got all the strength in the world. You got all the energy in the world. You got all this going on. If you're in the workplace, somebody who's on meth and they come back in, that meth's going to burn off in about an hour at the most. I mean, that'd be maxed out. When that burns out, guess what happens? All the dopamine in the brain that's supposed to supply you what you need to be able to function normally is gone. You crash. You've been turning out 50 pages a second. And now then you can't unfold one piece of paper. And you're mad, you're irritable, you're angry. You've gone from this high-flying jet man down to this crashing. Your teenager is doing this. They're just doing this. And when they're doing that, you're going, what in the world's wrong with you? That's a good question. It's a good one to ask. How come you didn't get in on time? I don't know. You got any chips? Anything salty maybe, a couple bags of them maybe I could eat. Okay, what does marijuana do, right? You get the munchies. What does marijuana do? You lose track of time. What does marijuana do? It causes depth perception problems. Sorry, Dad, I ran into Mom's car when I pulled in. Why did you run into Mom's car? I've got depth perception problems because of the dope I smoked. No, she parked back too far. All of this, if you know these, if you look at these signs on especially on marijuana, you're going to start, if you know what it smells like, we used to carry the little tablets. Have you all seen those? They're tablets that are marijuana without THC, and you can burn them, but just go out and get a hemp rope and light it on fire. You can get an idea. Or go to any concert with any normal musician of today and set in them one of the rows, and you'll get an idea of what that is. We say, well, how come they're going to legal? How bad is it? Well, they're going to tell you it's not any worse than alcohol. Huh? What? It's not any worse than alcohol. So you're telling me it's only going to kill like 23 million people a year? You're telling me that families are going to get disrupted? You come sit with me when you got a mother of 4 children trying to explain to me why her husband can't get home because when he's driving down the road, he goes over to see his 18-year-old girlfriend whose mother is in the house giving him marijuana while he has sex with his with her daughter. And you say, well, that's just sick. Our world is sick. Our world is sick. I mean, that's what I deal with and what I can't even begin to tell you. And Span, again, you know this. You see it every night. But the truth of the matter is, when they're doing that dope, they're stupid. That's what they call them, dumb, stupid. Zoned out, bummed. Why? Because they have lost the capacity to think. Mood alteration is mind alteration. When you alter with chemicals your mood, you are doing that and you're affecting your brain. Now, there's a point to which you may become addicted, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But the truth of the matter is, why are you doing it? To chill. Well, why do you need to chill? Because I'm sick and tired of the pressure. I don't know how to cope. There are people who have grown up to the age of 30 and never had to learn how to cope with anything because they've always just smoked dope whenever it got bad. And they don't know how to deal with stuff. Some of those people are parents of children and they don't know how to deal with stuff. Now, when you get into some of these, well, let me go another step. So it's very simple. I'm on page 78. It's very simple. If you can imagine that you are wired and you just literally, I'll give you a shot. You ever had anything fall over in the house in the middle of the night? When you come up out of that, what happens? Every sense in you is totally alert. Everything in you is alive. You can hear roaches walk. You can see through walls. You are just like this. You just had a meth ride. You just had an amphetamine ride, except it lasts, and you were able to do everything. Now, LSD, PCP, not a lot of that around anymore, not a lot of hallucinogens around. You hear sound, you hear colors and see sounds. So if I was talking, you would see little dragons coming out of well, probably little angels coming out of my mouth and fluttering around. That's what you would see. And so you would stare wildly at that, you know. The problem is this all goes away. Crack high lasts about 15 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. All the dopamine goes out of the brain. Boom, you're down. You took it so you could get high. You got high, and when it was over, you went low. And you got to have some quick. And you're right around the corner from the crack house. And you go back to the crack house because you're going to get some more. If you live around a crack house, you better pay attention. You go back to the crack house because you're going to get some more. But you don't have any money. So what are you going to use? I got to have that. Literally, when you've been doing cocaine or crack cocaine specifically, for very long, it literally creates another drive. And like you would say, if I don't get some water, I'm going to die. The crack addict says, if I don't get that drug, I'm going to die. And if I'm going to die, I might as well kill you. I might as well kill you if I'm going to die. They go in, all that. So places around those crack houses, ever told your kids about this stuff? Talking to them about where they drive, warning them about where they go, helping them understand that not everything is like Elm Street. Well, no, that's Nightmare on Elm Street. I can't go there. Our Elm Street. Let's go with Weatherford, okay, over here. I'm just saying that if you'll pay attention to these signs, you can begin to see what goes on. If you pay attention to it closely, you're going to see that when I'm smoking that dope and I'm riding that high, when it goes away, or when I'm on that dope, I got the don't cares. I don't care. I can't care. My brain won't let me care. So I don't go to work. I may not go to school. And you know what? I don't care. Why are you doing that? Why? That's the question we've got to get to with your child. Not that you did it. You don't need to beat them up. We're going to get to that in a minute. You don't need to yell at them. The main thing you got to know is, why are you doing that? And I'm telling you what the answer is going to be. I just want to get away. I'm just tired. I just got to get away from it. Well, have you thought about running? You asked me that question and I'd slap you. I mean, yes, I've thought about running. Shut up. I don't feel like running. There's something else I can do though, and that is I can listen to some music. I can sit down and call one of my kids. There's other things to do, but if you don't learn those coping skills coming up, you don't have them. On the main issue that I want to show you tonight, did it fall off? There it went right there. Louis, come up here. I'm going to show you something. If you look on page 78, when your child comes in, one of the things that you can understand is that when it affects the brain, almost anything that affects the brain affects the eyes. So if it affects the brain, it's affecting the eyes. You've driven by a highway patrolman somewhere and seen him doing this kind of stuff. Well, it's not rocket science. This is just a cop doing it. Easy, keep your gun in. This is a very simple procedure. Number one, if you're doing some type of a chemical, I should be able to point this at his eye and immediately his pupil will contract. Anytime you put the light in his eye, his pupil contracts. That's normal. Guess what happens if you're on marijuana? So why do they wear sunglasses? They're not wearing sunglasses. They're hiding the redness of their eyes, and they're also hiding the dilation of the pupil because the light is driving them crazy. So when your kid comes in and you're standing there with a flashlight, they're going to know better tomorrow, right? They're going to come back the next night, and then one of your friends is going to come in. You're going to say, "Come here, Johnny," and they're going to go, "Oh, Dad, not him." "Oh, yeah, him. He's going to be driving the car." Here's the other one. Follow my finger. He should be able to hold that for 3 seconds. If you cross your eyes, you should be able to do it for 3 seconds. If you can't do convergence, you'll do this. Your finger will come in and your eyes will go right straight over the top, and you cannot do it. That's something's wrong. Follow my finger. Leave your head still. Follow my finger. Follow my finger. Up your nose. Nystagmus. Nystagmus. You should be able to have a floating right to left, left to right, unless you have a doctor's order. If you have eyes that cannot do that, you'll have a doctor's order. If you can't follow left to right, right to left, and you can't do this, and your eyes and your pupils are not dilating properly, the rapid eye movement, if you're looking at them and they're jerking, go ahead, try to make your pupils jump. You can't make your pupils jump. If you're on meth, they're going to jump. They're just like this. If you're on speed, cocaine, they're going to be jumping. Now, don't go home and get drunk tonight and try to see how all this works, all right? I'm telling you, but if that's going on in your child's head, they've got a drug problem or they got a brain problem. There's not an in-between. If they do have an eye problem, get them to the eye doctor, but there's too much going on here. Because you see, the other problem is he's already 2 hours late, and he's come in late, and I'm beginning to smell some things now. And I'm beginning to recognize his clothes are totally changed. He's not caring about the way he's dressing. I've been watching the way his dress has been changing. I've been watching the way that his schedule's been changing. I've been watching the way that he interacts with other people. I've been watching his moodiness. I've been watching all of this, and now I got this. I got a problem. Now listen to me. I'm not saying it's a drug problem as much as I'm saying is it's a problem. And when you've got a problem, go get help. So I can say to my son, "Hey, buddy, I'm not liking what I'm seeing here. And we're going to call a counselor tomorrow, okay? And right now, until things change, you're grounded for 6 months. Thank you." Right? Can you what? Yeah, you passed this time. Just failed the last one. We got you off that stuff. Oh, I left one out. Droopy eyelid. This is the guy you see in the back of the choir who's trying to stay awake, and he's giving it this, I got them open. I know I got them open. And they just continue to droop. Now, I'm going to tell you that droopy eyelid, if they've got a droopy eyelid, and you will know if your child has a droopy eyelid, and I'm going to tell you that's a dead giveaway for some type of a depressant, and especially marijuana, that droopy eyelid is going to hit, and you can tell them all you want to tell them to open their eyes, and they're going to tell you they are. They're going to tell you they're open, and you're going to go, no, they're not open. How many parents know how to even look? With marijuana being all over the place and getting ready to spread everywhere, and your kid beginning to use it to try to cope with life and not developing coping skills, your grandchild beginning to get into a situation where they've got these friends that are smoking it and say there's nothing wrong with it, and you're telling them, hey, it gets into the brain, and when it gets into your brain, it clogs up all the receptors that are going through your head. I don't want to mess up my brain, dude. When methamphetamine gets in there and it begins to drop all that dopamine, and it calls for this dump of all this dopamine, these neurotransmitters, and you're flying high as a bird, and you're talking about how great it is, and just about 30 minutes later, you're on the ground. You're mad, you got to find more. So what's one of the signs of drug abuse? They steal. They steal. They got to get some more. What's the biggest one about a drug abuser? They lie. They lie, and they lie, and they lie, and they lie. That when the truth will work wonderfully well, they're going to come up with something else that's a lie. Because they've got to get, now look, I hope you understand, I'm not shaming them, putting them down, anything. My heart breaks for good people that get into bad trouble because of substances. They're great people, but their lives can be totally ruined just because they got into a substance. You think my heart doesn't break? You know, if I could tell you the number one sign that I've seen in most substance abusers that I know, there's two major ones. The number one thing that I've seen is they're sensitive people. They are very sensitive people, and they can't handle pain. They don't know what to do with pain. And so they're killing the pain. And they won't judge anybody because they sure know what they've gotten into. And they love to be free from it. If you think you would love to see the drug abuser stop using drugs, you don't want that near as bad as the drug user does. You cannot possibly imagine. When I've seen them on the floor of a jail cell, banging their fist on the floor and crying out, please take this away. Please, somebody stop me. Please stop it. You see, addiction doesn't mean somebody won't quit or they're enjoying the high too much. The very word addiction, you know what that word means? To be enslaved, to be ensnared. Because by now, the brain has learned something, and that is it doesn't need to create dopamine to bring forth the neurotransmitters that'll make you happy because there's too much already, and so it's quit making dopamine. And now then you are so sad, and you are so low, and you know you've got to get back up. Only this time when you take the hit, guess what? It only brings you up to normal. You never get high again. Len Bias, one of the greatest athletes that was ever brought out by the Boston Celtics. When we talked to the NBA officials of the security, and they were talking about him, and this was before, actually, right after this happened. I was at a conference, and they said Len Bias was going to be given the greatest contract ever given a basketball player by any team, Boston Celtics. And that night, knowing he was going to get that contract, somebody put him in touch. They knew he did cocaine. The Boston Celtics knew he did cocaine. Everybody thinks it's okay because nobody's getting hurt. See, I can do it all the time until what happened to him. And he got in touch with a drug dealer who said, I can get you some good stuff. He was in a different city, different town, got a different guy that put the stuff together. It was way too strong. It blew his brain. Killed him. Never realized the dream. And this is the kind of stuff you got to look at them and go, listen, son, these aren't registered pharmacists that are creating this stuff in a scientific lab somewhere south of Houston, right? These are druggies in a motel. These are potheads. These are acid freaks. That's who's cooking this stuff. And the other thing we don't know is just what did it do long term to that person? What other organs were affected? What other things happened? We hear it all the time. You know, it's really okay because everybody does it. You ever heard that? Everybody does it? I can go into an AA meeting or a bunch of guys and they'll say, you know, well, everybody does it. And I go, not where I live. Not everybody does it where I live. Why? I'll tell you very simply. We live in two different worlds. If you've ever been involved in substance abuse, everybody you knew around you used drugs. It was just as common as drinking water. And then if you weren't involved in a world like that, nobody around you used drugs. You know what the problem is? Our kids are walking in the world, the real world. College, campus, work. I didn't even get into roofies and all the rest of that stuff, protecting your daughters around that kind of thing. We send our daughters into the meat market for their first job, right? We throw them into those corporate secretarial jobs that are just meat markets out there, and send our boys into work in fast food restaurants where most of the drugs are passed, or somewhere, you know, where they can pass it through with a McDonald's and a little hit, right? They're doing something like that. And we think, my kid's working at McDonald's. Did you warn him? Did you ask him to check? I trained all the workers at PepsiCo Foods, which was Taco Bell and Pizza Hut and Frito-Lay and all that. I trained all those workers in business because they got tired of having the guy working beside them messing up the whole deal because he was high, and nobody take issue with him, and they didn't know how to detect. We taught everybody that everybody else knew how to look, and it cut the numbers of drug accidents on that thing markedly. So how are you going to confront? Well, number one, if you're going to confront, search for evidence. Okay, the earlier you get this, the better it's going to be. This is going to be on page 80, I think, or 81. I'm going to tell you this. If you're going to deal with a child, they've come in, you've had it, there's enough signs and symptoms, and you know you're going to have to do something. You found something in their room. You found a vaping pen. You found a pipe. You found some seeds. You found burn spots in your car interior where the seed exploded when they were smoking marijuana. It used to be easier when we had velour seats because it would always burn a hole in the seat and get caught. But now we have leather and it doesn't tend to do it, so kids will get by a little easier. But you finally got them. The first person you got to take control of is you. You don't want to hurt this young person. You don't want to hurt this child. You don't want to hurt this adult. The first emotions you want to show if your child comes in 2 hours later, not I'm going to kill you, but the first emotions you want to show are, I'm so glad you're home. I was worried sick. That's an honest emotion. If they're finally, you've got evidence on their drugs, all you got to do is just say, look, we're going to have to deal with this, but you're going to have to get control of yourself. Deal with your own emotions first. And if you think you're going to explode, get out of there. Don't do it. Why? Because which side of the brain you're going to be talking out of? You're going to be talking out of the right side of the brain. And you're going to be saying stupid stuff. You're going to be saying stuff you regret you said. I wish you were never born. Well, you shouldn't have had sex with Mom. You know, that kid will come right back on you. I mean, it's like boom, you're going, I didn't mean so, that's not what I meant. Well, you should have. And the kids they got you. So what you've got to figure out is, what am I going to say? It may be that you're going to see enough of the family that's aware of this that you get together a group that is going to do some type of an intervention. Oh, I forgot these other ones. Listen without accepting excuses. Whoops. Don't just stand firm. No, we're going to drug test. We're going to drug test. Well, those things don't work. They'll be fine. Well, then that's fine. It's my decision. Well, I'm leaving. You know, I can't stop you. I can't stop you. But I can tell you this, that would be probably the most horrible mistake you ever made in your entire life. Because I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to help you. But if you don't keep your cool, you're going to start saying things that you wish you'd never said. You're going to get out of control. But when you, in front of them, weep over what's ahead and the pain you felt, and you share how badly how you feel about being lied to, and how bad it feels to have someone you trusted so much to hurt you like that, and you share what you really feel about, this is not what I want for the rest of my life. This is not where I want to go for the rest of my life. And I've got to find a way out. And we've got to find a way. That's the truth. We're looking for tomorrow. We're not looking how to punish yesterday. You're not looking at that point, how to figure out how to hurt them because of what they did. You're trying to figure out how to help them so we can go on. And the truth is, when you really get that down to them, most of them are going to say, thanks. Questions you don't ask them, who else is doing this? What's this going to be about? We can ask that later, okay? You know, where'd you get it? What difference does that make right now? The only thing that matters right now is I need to figure out how I'm going to help my son or my daughter, my husband, my wife, my cousin, my nephew, my neighbor, my friend, my brother, my sister. How am I going to help them? That's all that matters. And you're not going to do that ripping them up. Remember, most people are good people that get hurt because they do something that causes bad things. They're not bad people. They're not bad people. But the truth is, they've done some pretty bad things. And if they don't get control, that's when you go to we'll talk about it later. What about drug testing? I will tell you this, drug testing is pretty accurate on the five panel screen, the major drugs of abuse. It is not going to test right now, I don't think, for fentanyl. It's not going to test. It may test for narcotics or opiates of some type. All this stuff about, well, I heard if you eat some opiate seeds, it'll show up. You're right, but they've got a way to check on what that was. And also, you might have the receipt from McDonald's. But the point is, they need to go see. We need to find out. Now, if they say, I'm doing it, don't waste your money. Don't waste your money. If they say, yeah, I'm in trouble, this is what's going on, you don't need all of that. But remember what I said. If their behavior, if they're not being attentive in school, if their grades are falling, or if they're not making it to work, or if they're losing their job, or if whatever, you know, when by the way, on an alcohol employee, most employers will let that employee go until the place where they literally have to fire them. And they never think about the family at home. They never think that if they fire that man, he'd go get help. But you got a 16-year-old daughter sitting at home trying to pick him up and do like some of these girls that I've heard, and that is they getting dad almost inside the house and he throws up all over their hair. And he throws up all over their hair, and they have to clean that up, and then he does it on the floor, and they're trying to get their own dad back into bed, and they're trying to heave him into bed. Now that gets us into child of an alcoholic. That's in another 7-part session coming to a theater near you. The whole thing is, you can move on through. Let's go on through this pretty quick. I'm running out of time. It is a family affair. Oh, my goodness. I've got to move on. Read the book, read the book, read the book, read the book, all the way over to, I've gone over most of this, page 91. All right. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. The stages, whatever stage you catch them in, it is a family problem in that no drug abuser can reach the place of killing themselves unless somebody helps them. Enablers kill addicts. Who is an enabler? On page 90, you've got all the signs of the enabling checklist: overlooking facts, discounting actions, projecting blame, minimizing consequences. Every time you call in, well, he's sick. He's not sick. He drank too much last night. And by the way, when you drink too much the night before, it's not just a hangover, it's poisoning. The problem, the reason your head hurts is because it's been poisoned. And you call in and let it go. Here come all these things. Well, I don't want anybody to know. Yeah, you may be who are you fooling? Who are you fooling? Your kids know it. Your family knows it. And everybody's watching you like a fool. You're staying with her. You're spending your time. You're going on. You're calling friends and trying to explain why you're late. You're covering up for the trouble they get into. You defend them when they're wrong. You minimize their use as normal. You say, well, you know, all the kids are doing it. You find it difficult to say no or discipline them. You find yourself taking the role of peacemaker or caretaker. You're trying to take care of them. You want to make sure. Then you start doing drugs. Now you're drinking because you're having trouble. Your work gets messed up. Now you can't do your work because why? They're always on your mind. You know what you're doing all day long? You're thinking about them. How do you know if you're an enabler? When you're thinking about somebody else and how to control their life all day long. That means that is called codependency. You literally they have now become your life. And you're now in the middle of all of this. And if you think you're helping them by worrying about them, you're wrong. You're so wrong. More and more of my thoughts are centering on them. I accept empty promises. I feel guilty and embarrassed. I work to hide the problem from others. I've made idle threats or decisions. I feel like everything would be fine if they just stop. If they just stop, everything would be fine. That's a lie. Your family's messed up. You're going to have a lot more done than that. I've created quite a mess right back here right now. Well, we'll just sit on that. I'm the only one who understands. You've become the enabler. Now, I'm going to tell you, it sounds like love. It really does. But enablers kill addicts. And you can love somebody to death because you just don't want to hold them accountable. But here's what I want to say to you. If you can, try to understand that they're fighting a battle for their own life too. They get into rehab, they're working through stuff. That's where you've got to step back and go, can't imagine how hard this is. I feel like I'm going to die if I don't get a drink. Above all, you take care of yourself. You build the boundaries back, reestablish the trust zones, and you begin to work through it again. And you begin to trust them, and you begin to give them a little bit of love, and you give them attention, and you begin to show them that you are responding back. Tell them how bad you're hurt in no uncertain terms. Get all the pain out. But here's what I want to say to you if you've got a family member who's addicted. If you're going to put it back together, and you want to be back together as your son, your daughter, your wife, whatever it is, tell them what the price is. Let them pay it once and move on. Don't make them pay it with the rest of their life. There's somebody in this room whose son told me one time when I was working with him, my wife said to me, I'd had an affair, and I was guilty, and I said, it's okay. 2 years later, she said, carry out the trash. And I said, I will in a minute. And she said, I can't believe what you did to me. 2 years later. He said, I'm not going to live with that. Nobody's going to live in shame. So you got to bring your child up and let them know, I love you and I'm going to respect you again. And we're going to build this back, and it's going to be better than it ever was before. But you got to figure out what's the cost. Well, my goodness. I used to do 12-hour conferences, so this is a little short for me. But I hope in some way I've helped you. Is anybody mad at me? Okay, just two. I can handle that. Thank you for paying attention. And remember, all of these are on there. And again, if you have any question about any of this that I've said, go see Louis. He'll take care of it. Let's pray. God, there's so many snakes. There's just so many snakes. Trying to find a way to talk to our kids and grandkids about them and let them know how scared we are and yet how we are assured that you're going to be our protector. And God, there's so many snakes that have caused us to be hurt. They've caused us to lose and to grieve. So many snakes. God, I realize we're never going to kill the snakes. They will always be there. But I pray you would help us to know that we can protect our family and ourselves by properly understanding that there's a reason why you've given us your word, the guidelines, the fellowship, the friends, the support. There's a reason for that. And we thank you for that. Bless these as they return to their homes, and bless their homes. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. Tell the nursery workers, I'm sorry I kept you, okay?